Prepare your kids to interact with the police. Police contacts can be overwhelming for children and adults with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, because of the blaring lights, screeching sirens, and looming strangers with shiny badges. As a result, it might be difficult for them to react calmly to an approaching officer. According to headlines and data, these interactions can make officers believe that people with autism are stubborn individuals who actively avoid questioning, avoid eye contact, and exhibit physical characteristics that are seen as disrespectful or unruly. That's why in today's video, we'll talk about 5 steps on how to prepare your child with autism to interact with police. Welcome. We talk about autism with the goal of sharing knowledge and bringing awareness to light. Our goal is to make videos that are easy to understand, so many will be able to understand and develop a deeper awareness of autism. With that said, we'll get into it. You're a police officer who received information about screaming children in a park. When you get there, you notice a teenager acting quite strangely. He doesn't look at you in the eye, has a recurring tic, and doesn't answer any questions. Even worse, he snatches something shiny off of your outfit or tries to flee. Well, what would you do in a situation? Do you consider this to be suspicious behavior, or do you strive to be sympathetic? Well, the list of wrong assumptions is extensive, and the results are worrisome. From New York police officers beating a 17-year-old in the face, to a North Carolina school cop holding a 7-year-old in handcuffs on the floor for 38 minutes. The same thing happened in Arizona in 2017 when a police officer held a 14-year-old to the ground after mistaking him for a drug user rather than an autistic teenager stimming to calm himself. Sadly, research shows that there's an increased risk of violent encounters for black and brown children and people with ASD. Washington Post opinion post parent and associate professor Jackie Spinner writes, "I worry that as a young black man or teenager, if my son wears a hoodie, someone might contact the police because he appears scary. Would cops wrestle him to the ground if they approach him and he doesn't react as they would expect? Would my son cry out for air?" What we suggest is as follows. Number 1, recognize signs of autism. First and foremost, it's crucial to teach emergency workers the symptoms of autism. Autism is a broad category of conditions marked by difficulties with language and social interactions as well as repetitive activities. Meanwhile, if possible, ask out if the police officers at your neighborhood station have received autism-related training at the local, state, or federal levels. Training is required in some states, such as Florida, although it is not in many others. For law enforcement and first responders, many autism organizations offer flyers and fact sheets regarding ASD. A fantastic What is Autism handout made especially for families to share with police is included in the free Meet the Police Handbook from the National Autism Association. Autism has a wide range of subtypes, thus each individual has particular strengths and shortcomings. While some children with autism live independently, many of them need daily assistance. Officers must be able to identify some of the following symptoms. 1. Autism affects a child's perception of danger. Without saying a word, they frequently stray away from their caregivers and end up close to water. Every child should avoid the water, especially those who can't swim. Another potential hazard is traffic. 2. A person in uniform frequently overwhelms them. Individuals with ASD frequently respond to fight with flight because they're overwhelmed. In this instance, they may not listen to directives such as stop. Autistic people may also be able to answer the queries of their child, may simply shut down. 3. Engage in repetitive behavior. Children with autism frequently fidget, rock their bodies, or flap their hands to relax. They may even avoid making eye contact. This is not meant to be confrontational. People with autism also struggle with sensory perception and dislike being touched. The first step in avoiding uncomfortable and violent situations can be learning to recognize these symptoms. Officers deal with emergencies on a daily basis, and they are prepared to handle a crisis in a certain way. For those with autism, this procedure isn't always the greatest option. Law enforcement organizations ought to create a plan to better serve, protect, and take care of people with disabilities. Number 2, register your child with the police in your area. Registering your child with the 911 database dispatch in your neighborhood police precinct is another precaution you may take. Request a registration form from your neighborhood autism organization or police department. Should contain your child's photo, contact information, prescriptions, diagnosis, including allergies, behaviors, sensory processing disorders, and coping techniques. In this manner, if the police are ever called to your home, the officer will be alerted to your location and be aware of your child's autism in advance. Similarly, if your child wanders or elopes, police and first responders can decide on the appropriate course of action more swiftly to ease the stressful situation for your child. Now, before we continue, we'd like to ask for a few moments of your time. If you want to support us and its mission to spread awareness about autism, please leave a like and click on the subscribe button. This would help us create more engaging content for you. Now, moving back to where we left off. Number 3, ensure that your child carries an ID card, medical alert bracelet, or both. Your child can carry dozens of identification cards in a wallet or pocket that are available on the market or can be obtained at no cost. In addition to the same ASD-specific information from the police registration form, cards also include basic information about your kid, such as name, age, diagnosis, and medications. Check out the selection of ID cards provided by Autism Speaks. Also, remember that children and teenagers who carry ID cards should be taught not to reach for the card without first alerting the officer, who might interpret the action as a grab for a weapon like a gun or knife. Wearing a medical alert bracelet is an additional choice. Many bracelets available now feature cutting-edge features like QR codes, which enable law enforcement or first responders to scan the bracelet and get data on your child from a database. These technological solutions demand an additional step of uploading data and the remembrance of information updates. But when utilized properly, these bracelets can prevent crisis and save lives. First responders are trained to look for the distinctive stainless steel bracelet with the blue or red snake with a stick and star of life. Conventional choices like engraved information might also be effective. Additionally, you can engrave important details like autism and tree nut allergy on the reverse of the item. Number 4. Play out and simulate police encounters. The more children and teenagers may practice speaking with police, the more ready they'll be for a confrontation. In fact, the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia Center for Autism Research is experimenting with virtual reality training simulations for autistic children and adults, making it easier to practice repeated police confrontations. Recognize that even though the simulation isn't yet available, you can have your child roleplay police contacts in the traditional manner at home. How? With whatever props you have on hand. You may just alternate between being a police officer and a child with autism. Number 5. Talk about racism, elbism, and the police through crafts, games, and the arts. It can be challenging to bring up the sensitive subjects of racism and ableism, especially with young children. Utilizing games, crafts, and arts helps simplify it. The Anti-Defamation League provides a number of suggestions for starting dialogues about respect, diversity, inclusion, bias, and social justice using both crafts and games. One children design an outdoor course of obstacles that everyone can use, regardless of their capabilities or limitations. Other students create their own emojis that express different facets of their culture and identity. As your child gets older and as your family becomes more at ease discussing issues like racism and ableism, you can delve deeper by studying subjects like the history of the American police force and the impact George Floyd's passing had on our communities. The Southern Poverty Law Center program, Learning for Justice, as well as the New York Times Learning Network are two excellent resources for finding knowledge on social justice programs presented in kid-friendly ways. In addition to publishing young voices speaking up, writing about, and producing art reflective of efforts to create a more inclusive and equitable world, both offer suggestions for educators and caregivers. Ultimately, police officers are people too with regular lives outside of work. There's no restriction against greeting them or introducing yourself to an officer from outside the neighborhood. Even so, your kid might meet someone new. It's essential to keep calm and practice many potential life-changing events. And that's what we have for you today. What are your thoughts? Let us know in the comment section down below. If you want more content related to this topic, make sure to check out our channel. Take care. We'll see you in the next video.